Hello, this is test portage number 1.
Test portage number 1.
Test portage number 1. It's a little bit windy, but I think it'll be good. Good practice for me, good practice for Kevin, good practice for the water, because we're coming for you. Mark my words, we're coming straight for you. Better watch out.
You talking to the Mississippi?
Talking to the Mississippi. You hold yourself tight. We're coming. Well, here it is, the Mississippi River, the longest river in North America, spanning just over 2,300 miles, or 3,701 kilometers if you're from across the seas. I paddled this river once, all 2,340 miles of it. Well, almost. You see, I paddled about 99%. The remaining 1% was a series of inevitable shortcuts, building up to about 43 miles of untraversed waterway, which just so happens to all be in the first quarter of the Mississippi River. Whether it be weather, sickness, bodily harm, or just the need of a rest day, the unpaddled miles added up, and I owed it to myself for the experience. The idea is to go back and re-paddle the first 500 miles of the Mississippi River, from the first city Minneapolis, without any portage assistance. I'll be walking, canoeing, sometimes crawling, every single inch. Meet Kevin Parsons, an avid cyclist adventurer that I met on a previous expedition over 2 years ago. Kevin has recently began playing with the art of water travel. We're going back, where it all began 13 months ago, where I'll be able to truly capture the benevolence and malevolence of the most life-changing riverway I've ever paddled through. Nearly 13 months ago, I docked my canoe at this resort on a rough, windy day. Landbound, I began seeking assistance and was kindly offered a place to pitch my tent, have a meal, and dry my clothes. Now, 13 months later, I was welcomed with open arms by the same kind-hearted and warm-souled people that I had met so many months ago. I walked inside and heard the exclamation, "Peter Frank! I'll be damned."
Okay, well, awesome. Remember him stopping
Yeah,
last year?
the one for canoeing?
Yes, yeah.
What are you doing this time?
Doing it again.
I mean, are you in your canoe or are you?
Yeah, I'm with a friend this time, and I'm guiding somebody through the state of Minnesota. He's a great gentleman. His name is Kevin. He'll be up in a little bit.
Okay. Do you need a place to stay again tonight?
I would love one if it's available.
Yeah, you can go right down there again. That's fine.
Thank you so much.
You bet. Yeah.
I do appreciate it.
I'm glad you didn't forget us.
Now traversing through the lands I once paddled through, I made a portage at a campground. Richard, the campground host, extinguished my boyish desires to ramp my boat through the tight bridge tunnel, as it would have surely led to my demise. Instead, I skid over the rock dam and went on my way. And since that day, Richard and Susan have been following my adventures and watching me grow into the man I am today. I met Susan for the first time this evening at the same campground, after over a year of sharing my adventures with her and her husband online. It was quite an honor to be greeted by such amazing individuals. Susan has kept in touch over the year and is one of the sweetest people I've ever met. She made Kevin and I bacon and eggs for breakfast after the long crossing of Cass Lake. Hi everyone, this is Susan. She's been following my journey for over a year and a half now, and we're at this dam, this lovely dam, one of the most beautiful places of Cass Lake. And she was waiting for me. Monday morning, fresh, right off of the water, just finished 3-mile open water crossing. Susan comes up, says, "It has been too long." And now here we are, and she's made us breakfast, and we're able to charge up some gear, and I just wanted to introduce you to everyone.
I've been praying for you for a long time. God is good.
God is good. Thank you.
Whoa! This is the rodeo. This is called the river rodeo, buddy. Whoop. She almost threw me. 8-second ride.
Oh, I'm gonna drop my GoPro in the water. I owe it to myself and this river to complete these miles. And after 4 days, I made it to the first untraversed section, the crossing of Lake Winnipegaugee. This lake is a 12-mile open water crossing of the 5th largest body of water in Minnesota. Due to the brutal storms and wind, I was unable to complete this section of the Mississippi 13 months ago, and I'm back to fulfill my end of the bargain. As voyageurs get closer to this massive walleye fishery, they begin to hear the stories of old fishermen that get better each time they are told. 6-foot waves with storms that'll strike your boat into the depths of Winnie, you'll be told. If you have your concerns and ask for advice on when to cross, you'll be met with the leery faces remarking, "I wouldn't cross that lake in a canoe ever." Well, I've come to test the tales. There's a challenge meaning to be conquered and a song that's crying to be sung. First thing in the morning, I'll make my passage and earn the experience of this fabled waterway. It's currently raining. It's been raining on and off all day. About 6 miles in, all the land around me was covered in fog from being so far away. They say not to cut straight across because of how ferocious the water can get, but I thought, what the hell? Oftentimes, nature misses me more than people do. During this crossing, a fishing boat began speeding straight towards me. I thought, now isn't that peculiar, when suddenly I was yelling and screaming on the top of my lungs, waving my paddle in the air like a maniac. The boat turned off last second, nearly clipping my canoe, all the while pushing this massive wake onto the deck of my boat, filling my canoe with water. Out of everything I've lived through, you can still almost die from the most redundant things. And after a 12-mile crossing of Lake Winnie, I was back on the foamy river. Kevin's portage wheels broke. Got a call from him about a couple minutes ago. Said he needs new portage wheels, and in the meantime, if he can use mine. So, I just finished my portage. Now I'm bringing him some wheels. We're gonna go see what he's up to. You walked all your stuff over here?
Most of it.
Where's the boat?
I couldn't bring it.
I got your wheels here.
I knew it was going to go eventually. I think. But,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Little
Wait till you
plastic.
see the wheel. What did I do? The wheel just came apart. Yeah, all of a sudden I just heard this, and she came to a stop. I thought, well, maybe I can walk the rest of the way to New Orleans. I don't know. Oh, man. I have a few hundred miles to travel before I reach the next section that I was unable to complete last summer. Over the last week, I've suffered some severe sun damage on my hands and face. To counteract this damage and prevent it from getting worse, I've tore up a pair of my pants and wrapped the burns. So I suffered some pretty crazy sunburns over the last couple days. I had an extra pair of pants that I'd torn apart and wrapped around my hands and my face because I look like Santa Claus. I ventured until I spotted a sign from the water that read, "Welcome paddlers." I had come to visit old friends in an enchanted forest, where deep in the marsh, beyond the blue waters, sat a cottage belonging to the Brumashekels.
The Brumashekels are kind river angels who have been assisting adventurers along their travels for nearly 10 years. Soaking wet from the thunderstorms this morning, I docked my boat at their house, knocked on their door, and was greeted with a huge hug and a warm cup of coffee.
Feel like a new person?
I do feel like a new person. It's been a while since I've had a shower. Do you want to say hi to the world?
Hello, world.
Hello, world.
How y'all doing?
Wonderful. How about you?
An amazing place here.
We love it.
At just the sound of my voice, Sandy came from around the corner, asking astoundingly, "Is that Peter?" How many years have you been doing this, hosting paddlers?
Since 2014.
2014.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot of years. Does it ever get tiring?
Sometimes
Sometimes
when we've had a lot of people for like many days,
yeah.
I mean, it's just like nonstop, like, you know, like you leaving and somebody else showing up or
Yeah.
Yeah.
something like that, you
We've
know.
had them crossing in the yard, coming and going.
And there's, yeah.
It's a blessed experience to see these unique individuals again, tucked away in a beautiful part of the world, and I'll be sure to make it back a third
And
time.
then we had
Shortly after the Brumashekels, I floated past a house to find a man waving at me. He asked how far I was going, and when I told him my name, him and his family exclaimed, "Peter Frank, we know you!" As it turns out, I met Mark while I was canoeing through the Mississippi last year. He was on a pontoon boat, and he had told me I could paddle through the thick green marsh to save myself a mile or two. Mark then shared with me something that he had told his friends on his boat after I left last year. He told his friend that I wouldn't make it to the Gulf of Mexico, as I was a young boy at the time simply figuring it out, and he's impressed that I proved him wrong. It means a lot to hear something like that, especially since so many people live in fear of failure. So to be able to conquer the things that not many expected me to do is a real accomplishment for me. So Mark, tell the world why I'm here.
Because you're the greatest, Peter. You're an inspiration, and I've been watching you on Facebook, and you're the Mississippi River paddler, man. Love it.
Where did we meet?
We met right here on the Mississippi River
1 year ago?
1 year ago. Yeah. You were paddling through Blackwater, and I told you just go straight through the weeds. You don't have to follow the channel. It'll save you about 3 miles of paddling.
And it did.
It did.
Mark and I spent 6 hours in a tandem canoe today, traveling that 20-mile section where we met so many months ago. If there's one thing I've learned in this adventure so far, it's that when you make lasting impressions, you make lasting friends. And that more people know who you are than you might think. I'm dumbfounded that people recognize me by name or ensemble, yet here it is, in the heart of the Mississippi, where great men and women know me by name. And you're sitting up here, right on the shore.
Yeah, I've been here since 1974. So this has been my home for a long time.
You saw me paddling by, and
Saw you paddling by and said, "Hey, how you doing, Peter?"
you're like, "Hey, what the hell's your name?" I'm like, "Oh, it's Peter." You're like, "Peter Frank!"
I know, I recognize you. That's pretty funny.
That is. That's hilarious. So what are we doing now?
We're gonna throw the canoe and head down the rapids and go get some dinner and meet the guys later. And so I'm gonna show you, I'll tell you everything I know about the river between here and Grand Rapids.
Surprise canoe trip in the middle of a canoe trip.
Exactly.
I learned how to unicycle when I was 11.
Forget that, because I never heard anybody even try to go anywhere on a unicycle.
Yeah, me neither. Watch this.
Yeah. Hey, enjoy every freaking minute you got, buddy. Because someday somebody's gonna change all that. You ain't gonna be able to do everything you want to do. I hope you can. I hope you can. Life has a funny way of making you do shit you don't want to have to do. Just enjoy the ride. That's all. My advice to you is enjoy the ride.
Social media isn't real life, and I wish I could show you exactly how meaningful these journeys are to me. Though I believe this is the kind of experience you need to have for yourself in order to fully appreciate. So the best I can do is show you the highlights through my eyes. Perhaps someone somewhere is living vicariously through me, and that's a heartwarming thought. In the end of the day, I really love it out here, and there's no place that I'd rather be than in this boat, surprising anorexic horses drinking from the river, or mocking the mockingbirds, or sticking my tongue out at snakes. I'm going to be honest with you. Pretty sure we crossed that corner about 17 times already. Something tells me we're in an airplane. Hello everybody. I was just fishing a little bit off of shore here, and I have my tent set up, got my canoe next to me. I was casting my fishing pole, and lo and behold, I reeled that sucker in, and I got a catfish that's like, hell, 15 inches. That was crazy. I just caught dinner. Going to heaven or hell. You're going to my belly as well, but ain't now the line and blood all over my paddle. Gonna cut you open and throw you in the microwave today. No. So, I got this knife here. What we're gonna do is we're gonna make a little incision down the spine of this crocodile. Now, the first thing you're gonna want to do is you're gonna want to not forget your fillet knife, because at some point of your travels you're gonna catch a monster. Now, you may think that you have the skills necessary to fillet that beast with just a little dinky Leatherman, an off-brand Leatherman, may I add. This thing was $10. It's like the equivalent of cutting a lawn with a pair of nail clippers. Juicy, juicy meat. So, have you learned anything yet? I know I haven't. My God, dude, I'm so hungry. You have no idea. So, anyway, now that we got that out of our system, it's time to cut the rest of the bitch. Okay, take 2. Take 74. I literally have like clarified butter in my bag. Like I carry butter with me for this occasion. I think that says something about my character. I think it means I'm a cool guy or something, who knows. So anyway, I've got butter. I've got butter and you don't. That's the point, is that I've got butter and you don't. I'm gonna point the camera at here. We're gonna do an action shot. Action shot. Oh, wow. Wow, so, tasty. Wow. Free advertising. Oh, wow. Just wow. Oh, what a beauty. I cannot wait to sink my Jolly Ranchers into this fish. This is gonna be awesome. My God. This is like the best thing I've eaten in 14 days. Oh. Is that a fish? Might be. I'll check in a minute. That tastes like, hold on. Gotta get a second opinion. Yeah, they taste like real life. Gosh, I could eat this all day. Well worth it. You get to sit in the boat 6, 8, 10 hours, cast a fishing pole at nighttime, get ready to crawl into a nice warm tent with a loving wife, scratch that last part, and Catch an amazing fish and cook it and eat it. Oh, it doesn't get better than this. Oh. You know what makes this even better? Is that there's a little bit of sand in the meat from rinsing it in the lake. And so yeah, I don't know where I was going with that thought. That's terrible. But it tastes delicious. If you can get past the sandy bits, it's pretty great. Ours is amazing. I've been praying for this for so long. You have no idea. Wow. God, I wish you guys were here to taste this. Wow. Okay. I think that's about it. I saw baby coyotes today. I saw baby coyotes, and they walked up right next to the boat. I was like 15, 20 feet away from them. They came to say hi to me, and then they ran away. You never get to see things like that, you know? It's like, all those baby coyotes are like, how much more silent can you be than on the water? I think his fish died for a good cause. Thank you, God. He was a soldier, trooper. He'll be missed by his family, but a noble man he was. Okay. I'm gonna throw this one on for like another minute or two, because I kind of undercooked it. Okay, I'll see you in a bit. Hey guys. Oh, what the f? Annie, an old friend from the first voyage, drove up to catch me on the river as I was finishing my portage to the dam. She brought her canoe, a few bags of gear, and we spent a couple hours sharing together these enchanted tales.
My name is Ann Ogg, coming to you live from northern Minnesota on a blustery, chilly early June day. I've been a river angel since 2021 after my own descent of the river in 2020. I was shown so much kindness that I just wanted to pass that on to others as well. I met Peter in July of 2022 when he and another guy were coming down the river. They had met somewhere near the Headwaters. They were coming through Grand Rapids, Minnesota, so my husband and I went over to help them, and I got to paddle for a few hours with them that afternoon. But I didn't get to talk with Peter much, so I was really glad when he called me, and just on a whim, do you want to do a paddle late in the day? So we did a late afternoon paddle and just talked all the way down. And I was very impressed with his maturity, you know, for somebody so young, being so interested in other people, asking a lot of questions about me and about mutual acquaintances of ours and paddler friends, and just his kindness and intelligence. He made his own Pirate Pete leather hat, the tricorn hat, and dries his own food. Just a lot of neat, unusual things and that he makes happen in his life. So I just wish, Pete, I wish you all the best in all your travels and adventures. Just stay grounded, listen to Mother Nature, and you'll do well wherever you go and whatever you do because of your kind and open heart. That's it, over and out.
Annie has many experiences up her sleeve from her lifetime of adventuring. It was remarkable to hear the tales of her grand adventures. This journey is beginning to feel like an old film you watched years ago, and now in the rerun, you can't help but notice all the familiar bits that made the film great. We found a spot off the side of the river to pitch a tent for the night, made a fire, and then said farewell to Annie. Perhaps we'll see her again on the third venture down, or up the mighty Mississippi. The greatest part of traveling is that you get the privilege to be a part of other people's stories for a day, even if it's just an evening. Every single person is going through an incredibly lengthy process of character development that I know nothing about. My favorite part is learning about the history of what makes a person, well, a person. I spent the majority of my afternoon traversing through the wilderness, floating gently down a river characterized by an ever-flowing dynamism. I had this thought today, and that was, serenity of the mind is a gift given only to those who believe it exists for them. In the late afternoon, exhausted from rowing, I floated to a nearby sandbar where I met Jason, Stephanie, and their son Riker. I was quickly invited to stay at their property only a few short miles away, where we filled the ambiance with tales of grand adventure. And during my first night there, I left a baited line in the water to hopefully catch a fish while I was sleeping. At midnight, I was woken up by the sound of my line spilling out of my reel. I frantically got out of my bed and landed the biggest fish of my life, a 29-inch channel catfish. We then caught a soft-shell turtle first thing in the morning, and it was probably the most difficult thing I had ever reeled in.
Another turtle?
The turtle wasn't too keen on being caught by a couple of hooligans, and certainly not the most photogenic turtle either, as he's clearly never heard of Instagram.
We got a snapping turtle! Yep. Actually. Yeah!
My next quest was to find a staff for a special friend of mine down the river. I searched for weeks for a proper stick that would suffice as such a gift, until I arrived here, and I told Riker about my plans. Just then, the bright-eyed, joy-filled, enthusiastic 8-year-old runs off and comes back holding an 8-foot-long chunk of driftwood. At that moment, I knew that this was it. This was the staff. I took my saw, cut it down to size, and spent an evening whittling the rough exterior, sanding off the tough edges, and polishing a beautiful driftwood flesh. I knew this was the staff for my quest, not only because it's been floating the Mississippi for God knows how long, same as me, but because it meant something to this little boy, and that made it special. Early the next morning, I took the time to engrave Lee's name into the staff. It's a symbol as an angel, to be given back something that took time and effort, after giving so much to the people who only stop in for a night or two. One of the few ways I'm able to show my appreciation for an old friend. This isn't the first staff I've made for someone, and it certainly isn't the last. I don't do it often, but I believe that's what makes it meaningful. And finally, my quest to provide Lee a shaman staff was complete. I canoed to his doorstep where I hand-delivered him a work of poetic art, a staff characterized of tales of grand adventure. I've never seen the man's eyes light up as big as they have today. He sure does have a cheerful way of expressing his appreciation. We spent the evening sharing stories about life, morals, values, and boats. I'll certainly be back again someday with another gift, I'm sure. Lee then told me he'd do me one better, and then went off in search of an item from his garage. He stood on a stepladder, searching on the tops of all his shelves. I felt like I was in Hogwarts, patiently waiting for my wizard teacher to fetch me his spellbook so I could learn of new esoteric wisdom. He then pulled out a staff made of diamond willow, a staff he made for himself while he was a scoutmaster for his scout troop many years ago. He handed me his scoutmaster's staff and told me that it would do good in the hands of someone who'd appreciate it for many more years than he could on this earth. As an Eagle Scout myself, this is one of the most honorable gifts that I've ever received. I hope to one day climb mountains with this staff, just as he did years ago.
Hi, this is Lee Bergstrom. Eddie and I have been River Angels for several years here, since about 2016, I think. So we've met many different paddlers coming down the river. The reason that we originally got involved is that a friend of mine from my hometown in Bloomington, Minnesota, asked if a couple friends of his could stay with us, and we've gone, well, we've seen dozens and dozens of people since then. And of course, one of them was Peter Frank, Pirate Pete. He came down a few years ago and was vetted by our good friends up towards the Headwaters and said, "You got to meet this guy, he's extraordinary." So of course we did. And so Peter stayed with us the first year and continued his voyage, finished the Mississippi River, And then a couple years later, he made the same trip, and of course we were very looking forward to seeing Peter again on his second trip. And on that second trip, he made this lovely walking stick for me, which I'm extraordinarily proud of, because he took a magnifying glass and wood burn, put aim into the stick, Lee Bergstrom, River Angel, and he brought that to us on his second trip. And I was so moved and so pleased that I gave him in exchange one of my most valuable possessions, my scout leader's staff, which I had walked over several mountains in Montana and Wyoming.
The last passage through the city of St. Cloud was short-lived, as I had received portage assistance through Sauk Rapids and the two dams that gate the entrance and exit to the city by waterway. With the water so low this year, and the infamous rapids being nearly impassable by boat without high probability of certain death, I've decided to take it upon myself to atone for the distance I owed this river, by walking the 9 miles around the city, from Lee's house above the first dam, through the rapids, and finally launching again below the second dam. Roughly 6 miles into the portage, my right wheel caved and made it incredibly difficult to drag my canoe. In fear of being land-bound with an unmovable boat, I kept on pushing through the second dam. I took a moment to visit the rapids I canoed through over a year ago. I remember how thrilling it was to rush through the 2-foot-tall whitewater crest. There is no water left to float through now, no path to follow but the road. And it's remarkable witnessing these landmarks once again with older eyes. The impermanence of life is an astounding aspect of existence to observe, and by the end of the portage, 7 hours of consistent walking, dragging, and sometimes crawling, both wheels had completely caved, and it was as though I was trying to roll 2 squares underneath my boat. And with no wheel set, I wasn't sure how I'd portage the city of Minneapolis in a few days from now. Where there's a will, there's a way, and as Confucius says, the man who says he can and the man who says he cannot are both correct. 2 shattered wheels, scuffed hull, and dented rudder later, I made it back to the Mississippi where Kevin the cyclist was waiting patiently beside a fire, waving me down from shore with a friendly smile. He must have had plenty of time to practice fishing because by the time I found him after Sauk Rapids, he had caught us breakfast for the next morning. He seemed to be in good shape, as the river does wonders for polishing not only rocks, but spirits as well. See those? They're power lines. That's a good indicator that we're not deep enough in nature yet. Stay mindful. Before I make it to the final city of this expedition, I must fix the wheels to portage my canoe through the final dams. I pulled my boat over in a small town, found an overhead sign that read Outfitter, and went inside to find what I needed to complete this voyage. Slowly, the Mississippi transitioned into an urban modernist theme, where a bridge was always within view distance and the buildings tore through the clouds. Power plants were of no shortages here. The cities were a stretch I wasn't able to experience from the water before, so I was eager to face the adversity that this section had to offer me. I'm floating into this section completely blind, which means that I know little of the area granted my lack of previous experience with these few short miles. I've come across 2 dams called the Upper and Lower St. Anthony Falls. After 10 miles of traversing the rapids and low water that flows into the cities, my first objective was to find a takeout to begin the dreaded portage of unknown distance. I veered my boat onshore just upriver to the falls. I began unloading my equipment to begin the portage across the city of Minneapolis with my 18-foot canoe. I walked aimlessly in search of the nearest place to launch my canoe back into the muddy river. I'm unsure of the route though, as it could be between 400 feet and 500 miles. Only time will tell. Minneapolis is a beautiful city, with life and foliage creeping around every corner. Even the water trails are breathtaking, as it feels like you're traveling through a canyon with green walls on each side. I may have deviated from the path, but alas, I've arrived in several pieces. After a couple miles of trekking, I can float my boat once more. I'm just a few short miles above the first lock and dam system on the river. The schedule for the dam indicates that the lock closes at 5 p.m. today. Even though I sprinted through my day, completed 2 portages, and arrived before dark, I'll be forced to wait until morning to lock through. I set up camp at 8 p.m. on a small beach just a few short miles above the lock and dam. This made for a 13-hour day of traveling with 2 portages. Venturing through the cities has not only been quite the challenge, but a rewarding one at that. They begin the lock by opening their large steel doors, revealing 12 drop-dead gorgeous mermaids that serenade you with enticing vocals. Do not fall for this trick. Keep your mind steady and focused, and proceed through the lock. At last, after 27 days, I've brought this dainty canoe to the heart of the Twin Cities, where I'll float through the urban kingdom of steamboats and foliage overgrowth. Towards the afternoon, the clouds began to darken, and a cold wind roamed the air. I traveled for 7 hours before reaching the beginning of a hidden storm. I could see in the distance a wall of violent rain slowly approaching. Unprepared I docked my boat at a nearby island, and within minutes, me and all my equipment was drenched in a malevolent downpour. I rolled up my shelter in pouring rain and slept completely drenched in rainwater. As miserable as it was, I woke up at 4 in the morning, packed up my gear, soaking wet, and prepared my equipment for one of my shortest days. Hello? Can't see anything because it's 5 in the morning, but this is my last day on the river. I traveled a few miles south and took my boat out of the water after 28 days and stored it in my friend's garage and packed my essentials in a small duffel bag. My friend Ethan, canoe legend, a 2021 through paddler of the Mississippi River and 2023 through paddler of the Missouri River, kindly drove me to the airport at 7 in the morning, triumphantly completing the 456-mile repaddle of what I call the Headwaters. Just a couple short hours later, I was on a flying car, suddenly traveling from 4 miles per hour to 500 miles per hour. And I'd say that's quite the achievement. Farewell, old Muddy. It's been a luxury to feel your current beneath my hull once again. It's time for me to reinvent myself in a new world, with a new life. These last 4 weeks were the final step in a character development arc that had been contriving for 14 months. It's the final fold on a paper airplane constructed to propel me deep into my world of delusional grandeur. Only the water knows what's to come. And I find it intriguing how the river has its own unique way of saying goodbye. With one last storm as to offer her tears to a departing friend.
Love life, honor God, and He will give you fish. So, when your only cutting board is a friggin' paddle, canoe paddle, that's when you know that you're out here in the Mississippi River. You're all here on the Mississippi, doing things, making God happy. I don't want to do those things. No! No! Oh my God! So, all those bones. No! None of my meat. So, there we go. Come on, just a little bit more. Come on! Oh, okay. And there you have a butchered fillet. Oh my God. In this show, we're gonna teach you how not to cut a fish. And remember, don't do anything that I do, because I have no idea what I'm doing.
Uncle down in Herculaneum. They live right along the river, on the cliffs. Oh, you would walk out in their yard, there'd be a whatever.